America, the land of opportunity. That is what people from around the world heard. People who did not have opportunities in China, Russia, Germany, and Ireland. It is a common story of the poor working their lives to get a ticket or visa out of the country, trying to escape from the shtetl and pale to a utopian paradise where the streets are paved with gold. There really was no such place, but it didn't matter. I know the story of one out of 1,000 others who built their life in America off of nothing. This man was my great-grandfather, Herman Alpert, who was born in southeast Russia in 1892, which is now the Ukraine, in a small town called Smorgon. In the 1830s, Smorgon was the name of the Russian refugee camp located around a tanning factory. Most of the refugees that came to the camp were persecuted Jews from the Russian Tsar. Over the next 50 years, refugees started building homes forming the town of Smorgon. It was a small town where everyone there worked at the tanning factory. All the men and boys worked at the factory while the women and girls stayed at home. At this time, child labor was illegal, but the children still worked to make money for the family. The shtetl is where persecuted people, such as the Jews, would live. They were poor but optimistic people, so when the inspectors came to check on the factory, they would hide the children under the tables or piles of leather. By 1912, my great-grandfather was the oldest child in the house and was old enough to legally work. He had 8 brothers and sisters, and 2 of his older brothers were already with a cousin in America. He was 20 and saved enough rubles, Russian money, for 3 years for the long journey he dreamed to make like his brothers did before him. The weather was getting colder, and conditions kept getting worse for one of the many towns that struggled every winter with the weather and poverty. Nearby towns would be attacked by Cossacks and soldiers from the Tsar, while communism was on the rise with the Russian Revolution. At this point in history, you could compare Smorgon to the fictional town of Anatevka from the Broadway musical and movie Fiddler on the Roof. This is a great example of what Jews went through in Russia, portrayed by the song and symbolic fiddler who balanced himself on the roof by keeping tradition. Herman was lucky to leave Smorgon a few weeks short of trouble by Cossacks, Russian bandits who traveled from town to town, pillaging and raiding towns of everything they owned. It was heard that the Cossacks killed more than half of the village's small population, robbed the homes, the factory, and burned the synagogue of Smorgon. Herman also had a friend, Ida Zeskin, who left earlier in a different direction. She traveled through Russia and China. From China, she then took a boat across the Pacific to San Francisco to catch a train to New York, where she had family. Herman was headed for Rotterdam, a port in South Holland. He had enough money for a place on the ship the Northern. From there, he sailed across the Atlantic for New York City. Like the other passengers, he rushed on deck to catch a glimpse of the Statue of Liberty as they sailed into New York Harbor to Ellis Island. Thanks to the online site ellisisland.org, I was able to see a digital copy of the register log to find out that my great-grandfather's legal name was Chaim Alpert due to his still heavy Jewish-Russian accent. Alpert came from his cousin's shop, which said Alpert on it. Naturally, Herman used that for the rest of his life. After 8 years of working hard for a meat packaging company in Boston, my great-grandfather opened his own meat company, aptly named Herman Alpert and Company. He also married Ida and had their first child, Charles Alpert, my grandfather, in 1918. Around the same time, one of his younger brothers from Europe brought his own family with the remaining Alperts still in the Ukraine to Poland. While Herman was raising a family of his own, he was sending money to his immediate family in Poland. In the 1940s, when Hitler occupied Poland, Herman stopped receiving word from his brother and the rest of his family. It was hard not to hear rumors from friends at synagogue about what was happening and what the Nazi Party was doing to the Jewish community in Europe. Since he never heard from them again, he feared that his remaining family in Europe perished in the Holocaust. Herman worked hard until his retirement in 1970, where he continued to prosper in the New Haven area. He then gave money to synagogues such as Congregation Sinai, Temple B'nai Jacobs, and Mishkan Israel, as well as many charitable organizations in addition to being a Freemason. He continued to be a good American citizen to the end of his life in 1978. He never forgot his own personal struggle and those who helped him, and always tried to give back.